What's up, guys? My name is Tanner McGrath. I cover college hoops here at the Action Network. Happy Friday. I realize that Fridays are not the biggest days in college basketball. Everyone is getting ready for a monster Saturday slate. However, there are 3 games on tonight's slate that I really like from a betting perspective, starting with Richmond +9 at VCU. I continue to think that VCU is overvalued. Their shot quality defensive numbers are horrendous. They've allowed 0.89 points per possession in league play so far, but based on the quality of shots they allowed, that number should be closer to 0.98. I think they've gotten really lucky. Meanwhile, Richmond should have the best player on the floor in Tyler Burton. And while I love VCU's Ace Baldwin, he doesn't have the same effect on opposing interior defenses as Burton does, especially with his off-ball cutting. I also think the motivational factor lies with Richmond here. The Spiders are within 1 game of 6 teams in the Atlantic 10 with 3 games left to play. The seeding implications from this game and the next 2 are monumental. Meanwhile, VCU has a bit of breathing room towards the top of the standings, and they also have St. Louis on deck next Tuesday. And surprisingly, both these teams play at a slower pace. They're both bottom 6 in the Atlantic 10 in tempo, so I think that 9 points will end up being far too many in what should be a bit of a grinder. And with motivation on the Spiders side, I really like Richmond +9. For our second pick, we're going to go with Iona -10.5 at Mount St. Mary's. Look, I am not the one to lay big numbers with road teams in conference, but I think Iona's turned a corner. You often see these mid-major teams really crank it up once they start to gel. They're trying to peak into March. So while you can make the argument that Iona's 7-game win streak means they're overvalued, I just think Rick Pitino has his guys clicking at the right time. Meanwhile, I have no idea how Mount St. Mary's scores. They have an interior-based offense, but all their offensive stats are carried by a 38% in-conference three-point shooting rate. That shot quality projects should be closer to 34%. They've gotten pretty lucky from outside the arc. Meanwhile, Iona is a stout interior defense behind Nelly Jr. Joseph, and they also run opponents off the three-point line well. So when these two met earlier this season, Mount St. Mary's scored 0.65 points per possession in a 30-point loss. I don't think you guys realize just how bad 0.65 points per possession really is. I'm willing to bet Iona continues to roll in a solid defensive matchup with them. Finally, I'm going to go with Fresno State +2.5 hosting Nevada. I've been backing Fresno recently. They're healthy, and they have a really underrated defense. They stuck up to 4th in the Mountain West in KenPom defensive efficiency, and they're 2nd in shot quality points per possession allowed. Before this recent run, they've mostly just been unlucky. Opponents have hit 40% of their threes in conference play so far. Shot quality projects that number should be closer to 34%, which is probably why Fresno's last 3 losses were graded as shot quality analytical wins. Meanwhile, Nevada's offense is pretty reliant on off-screening and cuts, and Fresno's off-ball defense is really good. For example, they absolutely crushed Air Force's Princeton motion offense, and the only reason that Air Force scored at all was because of hot three-point shooting. And Nevada is not really a shooter squad. It'll be tough for Fresno to score, but the last time these two played in Fresno, the Bulldogs came away with a pretty dominant victory. I expect the same thing to happen on Friday night. So good luck with your wagers this weekend. Make sure you check back into the Action Network's YouTube channel for more daily action picks.